Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, 3-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Welcome back, everyone, to Reticle Up podcast. I have Jason Day on today. He is the Vice President of Business Development at Unit Solutions, which we're going to dive into all the things about what that's about. Jason, I still haven't met in person, but I feel like I already know you.
Yeah, we've already started doing some things.
Yeah, so I'm really excited that you're on here today. And actually, I don't know if you want to share, because I still don't know a lot about you personally and your background, like where you came from and how you kind of landed here in this industry.
Yeah. So I came from the military world. Surprise, surprise. So I spent 12 and a half years on active duty in the Army as an infantryman in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and then I transitioned out of active duty. Was a police officer for a couple of years. Then I moved on and started writing requirements at the Maneuver Center on Fort Benning. So all of the next generation squad weapons requirements for the rifle and the automatic rifle, I actually wrote those requirements for the Army. And then that was a contracting gig, and the contract kind of came to an end, and ended up landing at a company called Oneida Molded Plastics, working with a guy named David Power, some of you might know. And yeah, I really got exposed to industry then. I was working, kind of government-oriented programs for them, but really ventured over into the commercial space with David there as well, and doing some things with ICA there. And from there, I moved on.
For people that don't know, what's ICA?
Yeah, Industry Choice Awards. I should have called that one out.
You're good. I'm afraid of acronyms myself, so
yeah. Oh, I'm used to dealing with the DoD, so it's acronym soup. We did some Industry Choice Awards things with David there, and then ended up getting offered a job at FN America. Took that, where I was the director of business development for the innovation side of the business, which is really oriented around tech and things that help people be better at shooting and that type of thing there. And then did a few years there, and then here I've landed at Unit Solutions, where I'm the vice president of business development. I'm in Fredericksburg. I've got I'm married, and I've got 5 kids now. So
it's a lot. You have a
I'm really busy. Yeah. I'm always busy.
That's awesome. I mean, I've noticed too, a lot of people that end up in the industry, I don't know if it's good or bad, right? It's just different that you don't know tomorrow where someone's going to be at. Like the change in the hiring process is really funny, because I talked to some guy at Beretta one time in a match, and then the next time I saw him, he was in an FN shirt in the FN booth. And I'm like, okay. So it's hard to keep track of, but it's great that there is a place. I think if you learn firearms, if you understand firearms, if you have military, law enforcement, civilian training background, there is a place in the firearms industry, because that's what we need, is people that have been behind guns and understand them. That's the hardest part of hiring outside of our industry. People just don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. That's the background is key. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, for people listening, I kind of want more of the full-ish story and full picture. Who is Unit Solutions? What do you guys do? Give me the background.
So Unit Solutions, you could say it's probably like any other small business that, that the idea was prior to 2016, but the business was really founded in 2016. And the original concept was how do we help people, specifically originally actually service members? How do we help service members incorporate a tool that's really accessible, that kind of gets after some marksmanship principles, helps them improve their marksmanship capabilities, helps them improve their opportunistic training type things, specifically force on force and those types of things as well. Wanted to offer like a kind of an all comprehensive tool, all encompassing tool that allowed them to do so. So that's when the Unit 4 was birthed, which is this rifle, which is actually one of these rifles, and it concept was, we wanted to have the ability to really have a training rifle that felt like a real rifle, right? But allow people to have accessibility to it, right? So that means having to get the ATF involved and the process that goes there, right? To make sure that we're following all the legalities that go with that. So we ended up partnering with Lewis Machine and Tool to be able to get and use their forgings, right? So they manufacture the unit for us. So we truly do get a feel, the look, feel, form, function of a AR-15. So, when people pick it up, the first thing they say is, "Man, this feels like a gun." That was done on purpose. And since then, since 2016, what we really found was, as well, it's not just a tool for service members. This has got application to law enforcement. There's a whole lot of private trainers using this. And then we're venturing over in the commercial space now, as well as obviously, people that just want to be better at shooting and prep for competitions and those types of things. They've got a need for a tool like this as well.
Yeah. Now I have to know, maybe you can't answer it, but I do want to know, ATF, what were some of the red flags and like working with them that they had on this? It's because it's a non-firearm model. What was that like?
Right. So yeah, the biggest things being, there's a lot of things that are different in the upper. Mm-hmm. You've got the barrel that's an outer barrel, but inside that there's an inner barrel, right? So that's one thing that's different. But specifically on the lower, we had to make changes to the lower. So in the mag well, that can't accept the real mag,
which I tried to do, by the way, day one. Day one, I was like, no, it wouldn't go in my vise. I don't have it on my lower vise. Yeah, insert.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to change there. The pins are in a different location slightly. You get the fire control itself with the trigger and whatnot is there's slight changes that are different there as well. So overall, once you work it out, there's not the ability to plug and play with real rounds and all that. You can't just drop it trigger module in from wherever, whether it be Hyperfire or wherever, right? You can't do that. We have to make things specific for this training rifle.
I try not to giggle. I bet that process was kind of fun.
It was, we like anybody else, it was trial and error to begin with, and then we figured it out. And yeah, I mean, what we've got overall with the rifle is pretty neat. In that it combines some things that nobody else has been able to do to date. So we can do 3 different things with the rifle itself, right? So we can shoot blanks, right? So notice there's nothing there, and this is what we call the T-pack. Mm-hmm. It's got the CO2 canister with it. And then here this is a blank version, so you don't see any rounds, but when we get to that, you'll basically see the ability that it's already been preloaded with 30 rounds of ammunition. So we got blank capability. We do have a variant of this that allows you to just switch out the CO2 canister as well. Then we move on to what we call the non-markers, and that's an 8mm BB. Same design, but this is filled with, typically speaking, this is filled with 30 rounds. I've shot this one a little bit. So, and then this is one of the things that when I was mentioning marking, when I was mentioning combining technology, this is our marking rounds. We've got 4 different colors in that. This one happens to be green. So that's paintball technology incorporated in airsoft light type of a platform. So pretty neat. Overall, we've got some unique capabilities that just frankly nobody else does.
Yeah. The child in me, I know this is a serious platform to use for training, but I have to know, did you guys go out and take the markers and actually go to a paintball field and test your product and do research and development, like shooting?
Yeah. The research and development's it's obviously there's been serious points of it, but we've done everything from shooting what you would imagine, each other, people, those obvious things, right? But we also did a lot of serious testing with vehicles too, right? So the interesting thing about those markers, those marking rounds, paint rounds, is that you can shoot, I don't know, a rental car vehicle, because we've done it, and and just wipe the paint off, and there's no indentation in the car or anything like that at all. So yeah, we have done those types of things.
Why was the choice to use a rental car? Like, who came up with
Well,
that?
I don't want to use my vehicle.
Yeah, but your insurance adjusters listen to this podcast being like, we're going up.
Yeah, just because.
Just because, yeah, that's fair. Now, I know we've been talking about, because I have the actual like CO2 canisters that is great for like simulating, so blanks, we're calling them blanks, I guess. They're simulating the recoil. Obviously you can shoot them in your house that way. But it's something where like the dry fire game, I think, is something that's kind of newish to competitive shooters to be able to replicate those effects of recoil. So can you talk a little bit about how these tools specifically can be used? Sure, with the other rounds, but in dry fire specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk blank specifically, what it allows you to be able to do is whether you're just using it in kind of quote unquote dry fire / blank fire type scenario, you're able to practice in a different way that I think is actually really, really beneficial, because you're instead of just dry firing and having to cycle your bolt manually, you're able to just shoot like you would, right? So just the same way that you would, if you're going to be on the range and you're going to fire live rounds, you're able to replicate that. So to me, that's key, because you're building great muscle memory, right? As opposed to building in that weird, I got to manipulate my bolt and get back on target. You're actually able to not only practice your shot, but then your follow up shot, driving the rifle around the way you would in a competition, or if you're just shooting with your friends at the range.
I think that's a huge game changer. So like for people that just listen and that went way over their head, think about it, guys. Like when we're looking at all these dry fire tools and trainers, you no longer have to reset the trigger between every single trigger pull. Like, I mean, this is mind blowing for me, because it's something that I'm passionate about, is dry fire, and being able to do, again, double taps, moving to the next target, double taps. You're not having to pull back every single time. So I'm really excited about that. And I don't think people understand too, like how close, this sounds crazy because we're competition shooters, how close the felt recoil is for a gun that we normally shoot, because people listening are kind of like me. We've got adjustable gas blocks. We've got tunable muzzle brakes to our ammo. Our guns don't feel like rifles. I know in the military and law enforcement applications, I'm sure they do. Like, I'm sure they've got all the felt recoil, but for us, like, we really don't. So this is pretty close to what it feels like when you are actually behind the gun, getting that dot bounce, or if you're behind a scope, to be able to drive the gun and actually get that recoil impulse.
Yeah, we really chased that hardcore when we were doing this originally. Having realistic recoil, we didn't want to go in the military. They've got blanks, no kidding, blanks. We didn't want to chase that. We actually wanted to chase as close as we could get there to what the actual live fire event felt like. So that, to me, it does. I agree with you, Kenzie. It allows you to do not only just in your basement, just you as a person, but if you want to incorporate other tools that have the analytics out there as well. To incorporate your data analytics, you're able to do that with this as well in a dry fire setting.
Yeah. Now, I perused website when I was looking at all the things, but can you speak to the different rifle like length setups and how close they are to CQB, or if you are like me shooting a 16-inch barrel, what did you guys design for that?
Yeah, so we've got 3 different variants. The one I showed earlier, we call this our Spec Ops, but really, 14.5-inch barrel. Full length rail, and we're really going after what is just commonly seen on the AR-15 market, right? Allow you to have a tool that's the same. If you'll notice here, I just mounted a 1x6, right? Because as I'm starting to practice myself and do things myself, I wanted the ability to be able to have the same tools that I was using.
Yep.
Notice the furniture also in here as well on this rifle and all our rifles. I've got a Magpul stock. Got a Magpul grip, right? So you can change a lot of things on this rifle to make it the same as how you would set up.
100%.
We do have a CQB model. We call it CQB model, which is a 10.5-inch rifle. And that one's neat because, for some of the LE, specifically federal elements out there, and then some of the specialized military units that are around as well, they've got that need. Same thing. You can change the furniture, whatever it is you're using out in the field, you can pretty much change on this rifle and make it your own. Whether that be your optic, whether that be your grip, whatever the case may be. When we also have, and we really see it run a lot in that application. We've even gone as far as we've got a product that replicates. It's with a partnership called Blue Can, but a product that replicates suppressor length as well, right? So we're really trying to get after train as you fight type thing, and that for that rifle specifically, all of them, but that's what we had in mind there as well. And then we've got a 14.5-inch, M4 A1 style replica as well, that we call the Classic. That's got the front sight post. That's really what you see your regular service members carrying day in and day out, so that they've kind of got the same look, feel, fit, form, function as what they carry and use, all the same. All of them take, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but all of them take the same magazine. Mm-hmm. All of them take the same T-packs, so there's no differences there at all. They all run off the same gas system and that type of thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the magazine. I wrote that on my list. So yeah, for people like listening, you made a great video for people like me that are terrified of anything CO2 or anything I don't know. So it's really easy to open the bottom of the magazine, insert that T-pack in there. Yeah, if you want to show how simple this is.
I'll go through it. Yeah, so it's clipped right now. This is really easy. There's just a clip on the back. You open the clip. There's a little latch right here. You just push it in, undo that with your fingers, and you open the bottom of the magazine itself. This is a blank T-pack, so everybody can see. So all you're doing is just inserting that in on the bottom. It's hard to do with one hand. There we go. Insert it in on the bottom. Start to close this. You hit the latch over here like such. Notice it's already clasped, and then I just push that down. And then what I've done is the CO2 is pierced, and now we're ready to replicate training.
Yep, super easy. I mean, and taking it out is just the same exact way. You have some of that CO2 pressure that might be like the let off. Still hear that hissing, but that's just kind of the end of the canister right there. Can you speak to how many? Like you already said, I think it was 30 on the airsoft. I can't even remember. Can you speak to the different capacity or how many trigger pulls you're getting for each of these kind of T-packs?
Yeah. So in the blank setting, you can get roughly 60 shots there. With the projectile, anything that's got a projectile on it, whether it be the non-markers, which are just your plastic BBs, or whether it be with your markers, the paint rounds, you got 30. You'll get more shots out of the canister itself, but 30 rounds, just like you would in real life, and then you'd have to reload a mag, and that's what we were chasing, right? Is try to make you train the same way with the system overall. And it is worth noting that both of these are biodegradable as well. So if you're shooting in your backyard and you happen to have a BB that just flies out there and you can't find it, no big deal.
I'm laughing. I have to tell this quick story. My poor parents, the house that we grew up in, me and my brother upstairs, it was a huge game room. We used to play with our airsoft little pistols that we had. And I think to this day, and we've been moved out, for years, he's still picking up BBs under the couch, in the corners, in the closet. Yep. And I laugh that they're everywhere.
Yeah, that's we kind of find that same thing, but it is. I mean, they really do. If you've got them outside, you can watch the biodegradable process happen. It really does happen that way.
That's really cool. Cool. Okay, so I do want to dive in before we get into civilian stuff because that's going to be my excitement point. The military and the law enforcement training, is really important. A lot of those guys too go out and shoot competition too to get better and improve. And so, how important is this simulation training for them? And what's some of the feedback you've gotten with using the unit solutions? I guess the 4 or their different models.
Yeah, so we've actually gotten really great feedback. The first adopters of the system was actually the 75th Ranger Regiment, and what they were looking for and what they're using it for is a couple things. Accessibility, right? They want to just have something that's easy to grab, go use. And they're using it and have used it specifically in their combatives program called SOCP. So there's a kind of a use case there to to dive into. The 101st has got it, has had it. Their team actually won the 18th Airborne Corps match, competed in the ForceCom best squad competition and match as well. So that's nine people in that squad, and they won the 18th Airborne Corps best squad competition, and the only differentiator between them and everybody else was our system. Marksmanship was a big thing for that overall, and they did very, very well. We're very, very proud of that team. As far as the other elements, what we're seeing them do is it's just giving them time back. The DoD elements. We did some user evals with the School Infantry West and the Marine Corps. They've really liked it as well, and the feedback they gave us is it just helped them save time, right? They're able to take a tool like this, practice on marksmanship, get their recruits, trainees, future Marines ready for their qualification process just faster. And then, we've done some things with the 3rd Infantry Division as well, where it was just great to see that the guys and gals were in the back. They literally just hung up sheets over their wall locker area and were just practicing room clearing. So we're really giving them accessibility and something that's reliable, that it's not going to jam. Yeah. Like some of the other things that are out there that they've got at their disposal, but just aren't accessible and they jam.
Yeah. Then the cost too of, we could kind of dive into that. The cost savings is huge. So us competitors, I've done it. I have guns that I've built that are essentially replicas of the big boy rifle. So if I don't really want to spend training on 223, then I've built the 16-inch PCC to shoot 9mm because it's more affordable. I know people in Steel Challenge too, and they go down, they build a 22 to replicate the 9mm and so on and so forth. And even in PRS, I've got a whole NRL 22 rifle that kind of mimics what I would feel in a PRS match. So I can shoot 22 instead of a 6mm bullet, which huge cost savings. So when you're breaking down, talking to people, especially entering kind of the civilian market, the commercial market, how can you explain the difference in, again, TPACs, costs, savings?
Right. So, it's either air if you're just straight up air if you're using it, for dry fire capability. So you're paying for the price of air as opposed to, an overall price of a round, which depending on what you're shooting is potentially very expensive.
Yep.
And even the BBs themselves or whatnot. I mean, you're looking at, 30 cents or less a round for, if you've got something that's shooting actual projectiles out and you want to put something that have a tool that's actually putting holes in paper. So it's broken down pretty simply like that, you're starting to get into this, the single digit cents, when you talk the actual just CO2 canisters themselves.
Yeah. So for competition training too, that's a game changer, especially when a lot of us too, dry fire is great, but again, getting that live fire kind of exercise is important. And we can do it in our backyard. We can do that. We can shoot airsoft for sure. I think most people can do that in their backyard. Obviously blanks are great too, but the accuracy is there too. I was actually I was surprised because it's airsoft. I was used to the, $15 cheap little pistol I had growing up. But this was something where I set up the Steel Challenge stage and had the plates and I'm shooting little airsoft just as fast as I would shooting the actual match, so that was, speak to that competition training side, because I think that's kind of new for you guys.
Yeah, it's absolutely new. We're starting to work through partnerships like this one we're forming with you. Where we want to enter this space. We feel like we've got a great tool that does a couple things, right? One, we've talked about the dry fire, giving you something where I think giving you a tool that feels the same, functions the same, it has the same feeling, right, as what you shoot, as close as we can get to that. It empowers the competition side of the house to just be better, and not have to form bad training habits, right? So the other side of that, though, I think there's real application when you talk the just the BBs themselves as well. As good as I do, Kenzie, when you get out and you start shooting, something, especially if you get any range on the shot, you've got to start accounting for windage and elevation, right? So even with our system, you can start to replicate those same type of the variables you're going to encounter, when you're in the field, when you're actually out shooting the competition. You can replicate those same types of things in your backyard, right? So all of a sudden, you might be shooting at distances within 20 meters, right? But you've got to start applying those same principles as what you would for that, 600, 800, 1,000 meter shot in your backyard, because the BB is going to be affected by the same things that an actual live round will be. So,
do you know how I know that you're military? The meters.
That's a good point.
I'm like, hang on. Go back to Kenzie World in yards.
Yep. No, that's fair. There's a definite distinction in the two worlds. That is for sure.
Yep. Like civilians are like, huh? Just now they're like, what is that? They're pulling out their calculator.
Doing the math. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I showed mine a little bit on video. So yeah, for people listening, you're really going to have to watch video on this, but I put the HoloSun 510C on this, and I was trying to like kind of get it zeroed, and it was pretty spot on because I pulled it off of another rifle and put it on. Can you speak to kind of the distance? Because again, you're running the scope. I've run the red dot, so I haven't put a scope on it yet. I'm curious, like, how do you zero an airsoft for people listening, or how do you get that? I don't know, the distance down. Because again, this is new for me as I'm working with this rifle.
Yeah, right. So what we tell everybody for our system, right, is we would encourage you to zero with the non-marking rounds, which are just your normal white BBs, right? We do that at 10 meters, and at that distance, you're replicating fairly close to what you would at like 100 yards, right? If you're zeroing with like an overall scope, think that type of world. And it's that the BB there's really not getting, the BB doesn't have any drop. It's still flying fairly straight. So 10 meters, and it's the same zeroing process that you would go through. The distance is just much shorter, right? 10 meters, 10 yards. We'll argue about that, but whatever, whichever one you decide to use is fine. Both of those distances, if you use 10 yards, zero at that distance, no issue. And then you're gonna get, very accurate, A zone style hits, out to 20 meters with those non-markers. Very, very easily.
And still, for people listening, please wear eye protection when shooting this. Because, again, I was shooting against steel plates. The BBs can bounce back. That is a thing. Airsoft rounds. But that's been really cool because it truly does. It has the weight of the gun and all of that. So it's just been really fun for me to play with this. And yeah, I think I'm excited to see kind of the competition side of stuff. I don't know if you want to speak to like where you guys are trying to go next into the competition world. If you want to speak to that.
Yeah. So what we see is trying to we're starting to talk about the rim fire type of things. We think there's really easy application there. We're really supportive. I got 5 kids, right? Some of them are very, very young. But even in my 5-year-old's hands, she's getting ready to be 6 in November. Even in my 5-year-old's hands, like I have no issue putting this system, in her hands and teaching her all the fundamentals, how to be safe with a firearm, all those things that all of us learned, whether it was you learned it when you were at that age or whether you've learned it when you're now 47, right? It doesn't. You always learn those same types of things. So I know I'm speaking specifically to a child, but that applies for adults as well. So there's that. We see we're going to be talking to a couple of other people as well. We've got we really see that for what I laid out earlier, right? There's application. While it's not a bolt gun, we see that there's application into some of that as well, just due to the same variables. Windage and elevation, you got to deal with it the same way. And then steel challenge. I think that's things we're gonna look to support in the near term. So near term, really trying to enter the rimfire space, be really supportive of that. Teaching people fundamentals and that type of thing. And then I think we'll wind up transitioning over into helping some of the potentially some of the long range people, but I know that that's its own weird world as well with PRS. And then we're going to have a pistol coming out in 2024. So obviously supporting our USPSA counterparts there as well.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to dive into the topic because you brought it up, is how important it is to teach kids, especially when it's not necessarily an age thing. It's more of like when maturity. And I've had a lot of parents on the podcast before too, but can you speak to how important it is for, it doesn't matter if it is airsoft, blank shooting, 22. I'm sure a lot of us had 22s as our first guns, but how important is it for parents to really take the curiosity away, teach them the firearm rules first, and for them to treat even an airsoft gun just as they would a real firearm?
I think it's extremely important, and I think you hit the key point. Is it takes the curiosity away. This is one man's opinion, but I think that's a lot of the battle, right? I think a lot of things that happen that go out across the media were simply because it was always treated as this thing that you just don't touch, and because of that, it creates problems. And in a kid's mind, I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm still a child, so. I can understand and connect with when somebody says no, that's bad, don't touch. It's kind of like it's kind of like the stove concept, right? That's something that unfortunately you learn by doing it, and then ouch, and I don't do that anymore, right? So we don't want kids to do that with firearms. Obviously, I think, and I've offered my own experience there, right? By what I've seen in my own children's lives is that by exposing them to a tool like this, it does. Talking a pure risk, factor, it does, dial it back. But I'm also I'm creating accessibility, right? Because if it's raining outside, I can still do that in my basement or my garage. I'm not relying on what's going outside, or having to be relying on, having to travel all the way to the range, and take time out of the schedule. If I've got 5-10 minutes, I can do that at any time with them.
Well, not a lot of ranges are going to let 5-year-olds shoot either.
Yeah. Exactly. So, just the accessibility part's really, 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 really important, I think. And I've got to be honest with you. Even at 5 and years old or whatnot, she's a really good shot. And because I'm applying with the fundamentals with her, I feel very safe with her. Frankly, even though she's a child, I feel safer with her with this, especially with this type of thing than I do some adults.
Yep.
And
I say that all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's just important, right? I mean, if we, this is something that I think we all love. It's something that that once you're involved in this world and in this this type of sport, you're all in. There's very few people that are either they're kind of in the middle. You're either all in or you just don't really do it. Yeah. So a lot of people that enter this world go all in, and I think if you don't teach your kids that, you're missing an opportunity.
Yeah. Where did you start with your oldest on firearms? Like, again, for people listening, I think this would be valuable. It's like, where do you start? What do you do? How do you get to them actually pulling a trigger?
Good question. Roughly at about the same age. So my oldest, she's 17, going to be 18 in November. I feel very weird by saying that. I started her at 7, and then my son after that, same thing. I started him at 7. I started them with both 22s only because, there wasn't anything like this. I mean, typical airsoft stuff is just plastic, and it wasn't something that we've used, that I used in the past. But now with you're about to hear the age gap. Now with the 5-year-old, right? I've started her actually a little bit earlier because I felt safe with this, and as I've gotten older, I've just realized that taking the curiosity out, the sooner you do that, the less of a chance you're going to have. My kids come and ask me, even with real firearms, if they just want to touch and feel, they come and ask, "Hey, Dad, can I hold that bullet? Can I touch that gun?" Absolutely. We're going to go through that. I'm going to show you what the process looks like. We're going to do so it's safe. Remember the rules, and I have less of a worry. Not obviously I store my firearms like I'm supposed to, but I have less of a worry with my children because they come and ask, and that it's just the curiosity just frankly isn't there for them.
How did you know when the 5-year-old was ready? Like, or when the oldest was 7? Like, how do you know?
Good question. They saw me doing it, right? So when they see you doing things, typically speaking, at least this is one man's opinion, they tend to want to do the same things that you're doing, right? So they saw it was something I was doing, and they started to ask about it. And with especially with these types of tools, I felt very comfortable going ahead and exposing them to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've seen my friend Adam, his wife Tabitha, they shot an AK match with us at Clinton House, and they brought their two boys. And it was so funny because leading up to that, they're in like their living room, dry firing with the whole family, like practicing reloads. And God bless them. Like Adam's a big proponent of the Rock and Lock AK, and I'm like, can you just make it simple for them with like AR?
Yeah.
Which he did, but it was so funny because I'm like, I don't even want to do a Rock and Lock as an adult. That's just my preference. I want just an AR style mag and mag well. But yeah, I think that's fun to watch is that you can teach them young, grow them up around firearms, and then they respect them and yeah, ask questions. And it's just really exciting. I'm not a parent, but I think there's a lot to learn by getting them started really young and doing that in the home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I've, noticed that in that scenario, I've only got one boy, right? So I've got lots of daughters, and then they're going to know how to protect themselves.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Switching gears, I did want to dive into some of the instructor stuff. So I know you and I have talked about this offline before, but it pains me to instruct sometimes to not be able to show what actually happens when you fire a gun. So I just had a class recently, and I do this all the time, is I go all through the fundamentals and I show a trigger press, and then I try to explain trigger reset. And so in that moment, I reset the slide with my finger still on the trigger, let off the trigger, pull the trigger again. What happens though is for especially newer beginner shooters, they think that's how you have to fire a gun, is rack the slide every single time, even though it's a semi-automatic gun. So we go through this cycle where we get to the range, they load up their gun, they shoot around, and then they rack around out, or they jam because they're trying to rack around out and they don't have enough force to do that, and they don't realize it's automatically, loading that next round. And so like that's a big piece where I think Unit Solutions is going to make some of that headache go away to replicate that, hey, this is a semi-auto. This is already reset. You just keep pulling the trigger, but you have to let off of it. I know I'm rambling, but I'm really excited about this because that's been a pain point for years to explain in a classroom. And I think especially with the pistol coming out, that will solve a lot of that. So do you see that? And I don't know, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's the same. I know from my time in the military too, right? From just as a early beginnings all the way, through that, through time all the way through, senior level person in the military. It's the same things, right? So it's you always have to kind of go through that. Dry fires are key. I don't, if you want to be good at shooting, dry fires are the way.
Right.
So being able to not have to have that additional step, especially with somebody new, I think it doesn't matter where you're at. I think it's important.
Yeah, no, it's funny too, because bless their hearts, it's like they understand it or they get it later, right? It clicks, but you're dumping a fire hose on them about all of the things at once. And it's too much for them to even like grasp kind of that initial concept until they get to the range. But it is such a pain point where you want to hand them a loaded firearm and start there. You've got to start in the classroom.
Right. Yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I'm excited for especially the pistol. Like the similar to the rifle, I guess. I don't know if you can speak to like kind of the plan on if people are going to shoot with red dots or shoot with iron sights or anything like that, of just making sure that we're kind of meeting all of the markets. I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we fully recognize that the year of the red dot has come and passed, and it's just a thing now, right? I mean, it's like if you don't have at least the ability to incorporate a red dot on your pistol or your training solution, you're kind of living in the past, right? So we have the intentions of on our product, we want to make sure that it's just the same ways that you would mount red dots on your pistol. We want to do the same things. So we want to make it easy. And if you decide to shoot, iron sights, if that's your thing, you should be able to switch out the iron sights to what it is that you're running, so that we want everything to look the same, feel the same, function the same as close as we can get it, right? As to what you're actually running.
Yeah, heck yeah. Curious too, what's your personal training regime? So if you've got 5 minutes at home, what do you do in dry fire? And then what do you do at the range when you go live fire? Because I'm sure that looks different since I'm not in the military and law enforcement world, but I'm kind of curious, what do you do to get better?
Yeah, so I do a lot of, like, so dry fires are just easy, right? So that's my thing. If I've got 5 minutes, I'll spend 5 minutes just dry firing. Since I've been able to get my hands on this system, I do incorporate that into my dry firing. Without the pistol, I carry every day, right? So to me, that's a very important part of that. So without having that trainer, that I'm stuck to dry fire, manipulating the slide. So and then when I go and I do use analytics tools. I just because they're not, the ones on the market right now aren't perfect, but they do give you information, right? So I do try to incorporate those as well. And then when I go to the range, I like to kind of the people that really grew my passion for this or whatnot. I don't shoot E-type targets. I'll hang an IPSC target up, right? And I kind of start to try to blend the worlds.
What is E-type?
So E-types are the big green. This is silhouette target is all it is.
Yeah, no. Okay, agreed.
Yeah, and there's it's just huge, right? Huge. So when you talk about shooting and whatnot, there's no A zone, there's no B zone, there's no C, there's none of that. So it's not giving you, it's not really replicating to me what you're going to see, in real life or competition, right? So I'll hang up IPSC targets, and I'll really, I always kind of, I don't get a chance to shoot as much as you do, right? So what I do is I spend time just kind of slowing down, and then what I find is I quickly pick back up into my normal pace, and I'm starting to do things that I think are kind of blended in both worlds, right? Where I'll do the same thing where I'm just shooting multiple E-type targets. I'll do some drills where I'm shooting multiple targets, one target. And then the other things I'll start to do, I'll put targets overlapping each other, just like you'd see in competitions. I try to, the other things I really try to make sure that I do, to me, you're always kind of, kind of looking for the personal defense scenarios as well. I want to make sure I incorporate those. So I'll put people that are just on the outside of what what you would call cover, whether it be a vehicle or a corner of a building or something like that. I try to replicate those scenarios as well. So
yeah, I'm super, super spoiled in any of the ranges that I get to teach at or have access to. Is I actually can live fire out of a vehicle, but a lot of people really can't do that. But that is where you spend a ton of your time. I try to explain that to people. I'm like, how are you going to draw that gun that's now strapped to the back seat of the back of the I don't know. I've seen the passenger vehicle, the racks, and I'm like, how are you going to get that gun off? It's now molly taped, strapped down, whatever. How are you going to deploy that? I don't know if you've ever seen people. Have you ever questioned people like that and be like, how are you going to get that out?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, everybody's trying to sell you something at the end of the day, so there's a lot of that, that I think is that unfortunately people get exposed to, and while it looks harmless and it looks like a way that, you may have that tool with you, you can't deploy it when it's on the back of your seat or whatnot. So I think it's just educating people, and I think it's just as simple as it is, just educating people on, hey, there's other ways to do this, so you can actually access this firearm. And I 100% agree. In and around vehicles is one of the worst things that you can get exposed to or have to try to shoot in and around.
Yeah, 100%. And I dove into suppressors. I'm sure you've got some toys as well, but I don't think people think through either in a home defense scenario, and maybe you can speak to this, is I have a rifle now set up with a can, it's the dedicated home defense gun. And if they've never shot out of a vehicle, I've shot out of tons of vehicles in competition. And that concussion noise, especially if you got a louder a rifle or bolt gun, you don't realize how loud that's going to be. Now imagine that unsuppressed, imagine that without hearing protection. And so I don't know if you want to speak to some of that. I know it's diving off to a whole different world and a whole different topic, but the value of suppressors or training or having these guns set up for having to use them in the moment where you don't have time to go put on your earmuffs and be like, hold on, intruder. I don't know if you want to speak to that or not, but that's something I'm passionate about now.
Yeah, no, my passion grew for that really. We had those tools in the 75th when I was there. Those guys still have them; they still run them every day, right? It's great for not only sound but the just light as well, right? I mean, if somebody's breaking into your house, or those personal defense scenarios like you're bringing up, right? If it's at night, all of a sudden your night vision, the fact that you're waking up and you're already in the dark, the last thing in the world you want to do is have that big bright flash and now I can't see. And making sure you have the tools on a rifle that that help with that, and help you get back the element of surprise are definitely key. Having a good light. I'm a believer in lights. And then the suppressor is, if you're willing to go through the process, which it is a process, everybody knows, it is well worth that, to be able to have that additional capability. And not just on, I don't think it's just on the rifle, right? I think if you got tools that you have at your disposal that have them on pistols, right?
Yep.
Great. It's just knowing when to apply those tools, when
Yeah.
and how to apply those tools.
Yeah. And I'm getting used to the length. I mean, so that's something you talked about at the very beginning, is adding the length of the suppressor, kind of adding that weight. I mean, some of them are really lightweight, some of them are a lot heavier, but if you're not training how you would deploy that, like, you're not doing yourself a favor. So it's something that's like, I have a folder, I've got the suppressor, so I have to now work with the folder. I have to now work with like clearing different like rooms in my house with the suppressor link, which isn't terrible, but it's something to think about when people are like thinking about home defense, and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to like think about, like, so not everybody's going to go buy the 10.5-inch rifle, right? So you want to make sure, if you're using a training tool, you want to make sure that training tool replicates what it is you're going to actually be using. And then you've got to absolutely get used to what does this look like in my own house? If how do I deploy this if the need arises? And what you asked about it earlier. I mean, that's something that frankly I think it's worth people spending time on, is thinking about, like, hey, in my own house, how would I go to pie things off? How do I, how do I go to, approach, the various different things that could happen if somebody starts trying to enter your home that you don't want to be there.
Yeah, 100%. So that's something I'm learning and diving into, and it's been interesting to say the least. You feel silly in the moment. I don't know if you do too, but it will help later, because it's just getting, I know the wrong word is muscle memory. I don't know what it's actually called when you're ingraining those training things, because I don't shoot with lights a lot in competition at all. And so I put the pressure pad where my thumb will go and kind of try to make it where it's more intuitive for me, of like, that's where I grip normally. So that's where I need to set it up for me, especially if I'm out there training in competition. That doesn't always apply to CQB and personal defense. I'll tell you what, like, it's sloppier when you really, it's a mindset thing for me to switch over into a different world.
Yeah, and one of the key pieces of feedback I've always given everybody, and what I had given to me at a very early stage, is that you actually want it to be the same, right? How you set, how you fire your rifle in the daytime or fire your pistol in the daytime should be the same way that you fire it at night. You shouldn't have to like move your hand from here to here because you got to manipulate said switch, right? It should be exactly this, as close as you can get it to the same.
Yeah. I got to know too. Are you a red dot guy, or are you iron sights?
Oh, I'm full red dot. I love red dots. Initially, when they when they came out, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty Gucci. And it's all the normal things you heard, and then I started using one, and I'm like, oh, I'm never shooting. I don't ever want to shoot a pistol that doesn't have a red dot on it.
I'm the same way. It's pretty bad. Triggers for me on rifles, if it's mil spec, I'm out, and it's got to have a red dot optic. I hate iron sights. I feel so bad. I don't know if you've done this too. This was yesterday. I'll just show you this because I'm diving into it. Is I've started training with the occlusion of the dot. I don't know if you've seen that, where you can actually like buy like these 3D printed molded things to go over red dot optics. But that's what I was working with yesterday, because this is my home defense pistol. Got my light on it, red dot optic. But it's something that I'm playing with. I don't know if you've done that yet.
I have a little bit. I've started diving into it a little bit as well. Probably not as much as you, but yeah. I mean, I've played with a couple different things, and that's the other thing. Like when I started, kind of diving in the red dot world, One of the things that I really still focused on was, I always try to run what I view as the correct sights, right? So, suppressor hot style sights,
Yep.
so that you've still got the backup there and whatnot. And I honestly, for a little bit, I I attached a red dot and didn't put the battery in it just so I could still get used to lining up the sights. Because to me, if you're looking for the iron sights, the red dot's going to appear.
Be there.
But
Yeah.
if for whatever reason the battery dies or whatever, those things. I think those things are still important to train. And every now and then, it's important to kind of go back to those basics of that. Because if the last thing in the world you want to do is go present out and you're looking for the dot, you don't find the dot, and then it's in competition or in real life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Red dot is actually harder, I think, was harder to pick up than iron sights. And like that's where I kind of laugh. One of my buddies shot in open of a 3-man 3-gun competition and used his iron sight gun because he sucks with a red dot on the pistol. Sorry, bro, you know who you are. But it was like I was laughing. I was like, I think he should have to shoot with a red dot optic only because I think that's fair and that's open vision. And I'm like, and I want to kind of see the shit show that goes on of learning the red dot.
Yeah, no, I mean, for anybody that's still on the fence about it, I would encourage anybody to give it a try. And it's gonna be the same thing, right? You're gonna have to play in the game, and we'll all laugh at you. We're not laughing at you. We're laughing with you, but we're really laughing at you because we did the same stuff. But I mean, to me, it does so many different things, right? I mean, just all the angles you can create with that red dot that you can't with iron sights, I think is just key. The ease of being able to keep it to your body, and you've got now you're open to be able to kind of fire in these weird positions that you just can't do with iron sights, So.
Yep, I agree. And then the other thing I'll mention, because I did want to say this, is if you have iron sights and you do have suppressor sights, it doesn't really matter. I do recommend night sights for every gun that's going to be a carry gun, home defense gun. I still have an iron sight gun that I like to carry, and it's got night sights on it. And so, you can see those guys glow in the dark, but it's really comical to me how many people have these Gucci out guns, and then it's stock sights. I'm like, bro, how are you going to see those in the dark with no red dot either? Come on.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. You should treat the red dots, in my opinion, the red dot's great. I clearly love them.
Yep.
You should still have the tools necessary in your iron sights to take the shot should that red dot not be there for whatever reason.
Yeah, that wall there. I mean, they don't do anything, but I have the sights set up, and they're the night sights. So I'm like, well, they glow in the dark, so I find those first.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I know we've talked about a lot. Is there anything here? We've got plenty of time if you want to talk about anything else that's passionate to you or any other topics that maybe I missed or skipped over that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I skipped over a pretty important one. We're doing, I mentioned we're doing a lot of work with law enforcement as a whole. We've got a whole other kind of training program out there as well called the Unit Blue training program. And what we're really passionate about as a company, active shooter response. That is, it's an issue across the country, and I'm not going to get political, but it just is, right. So we view it as we have a responsibility as human beings to help with that. How do we help? Well, we've got a partnership with a company called Blue Bearing. Kyle Morgan is the guy there. And we, through Kyle, we're able to offer, this training to LE departments. That's just, when you get in the middle of it, the Beeville Police Department down in Texas, they just did it recently. There's YouTube videos out there that are, they're just raving about how it is just a game changer. And the Unit 4 was a big part of that. They don't even know how, their words, not mine. They don't know how they're going to live without this system now. Right.
Oh, no.
So we're really passionate about active shooter response. I think one of the special gifts we get in life is kids. And I think it's each of our job to do something, right? We can all do something to help with that, right? Whether it be, going and getting training, whether it be plug in and seeing what the local police department needs. We all have, I feel like we all have a duty to do something to help with this. Right. So, we're really passionate about that. It's a really important thing for the company. And then, we talked a lot about DOD, but I just want to emphasize, in this space, for the commercial shooter, we really want to offer guys and gals the ability to have a tool that just helps you get better at shooting, right? And if whether that be if it's prepping for your competition, great. If it's just helping you, have a tool that's just helping you, shoot in your basement, shoot in your garage, do some dry fires, replicate training, great. If it's going out in your backyard using the markers, the non-markers, whatever it is, great. If it's clearing your house and actually being able to take shots in your own house with the paint rounds, great. It'll wipe. I promise you, it wipes off your wall. You won't even know it's there. Ask me how I know. Yeah, I mean, so we're really passionate about this market, right? I know we talked about early in the beginnings of being focused on the DoD, but we are all in on all three of these markets as a company, and it's just important for us. We love this community. We love what the family that is this community in the commercial world as well. So lots of love going out to all three markets, I guess is the point.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll leave people with this too, is like, at my Gals Day event, people know I put on this major event every year for women to come out and shoot of all ages. And I had teenagers up to, 70-year-olds. It was awesome. And we had a bay that was all for 22. So people that were kind of newer got to go to the 22 bay, right? And I see this as almost a replicatable tool to use. And it's something where at the very beginning of my event this year, I did like 30 minutes of dry fire. So people got to go to all these different bays, dry fire guns, get those fundamentals back in place, especially pistols, because that's more of I think, an intimidating gun to pick up and start with, especially center fire. And so like, I think you implementing this as that dry fire time, because people were able to communicate too. That was a big thing, is like last year we kicked it off live fire. People were jumping, not really as welcoming, I would say, and not able to hear. That's the hardest thing with hearing protection, is being able to listen into an instructor. So I think this is going to be amazing. Same with like, I had a suppressed bay. Just it welcomes people into the sport, gets people learning faster. Instead of having the 1022s growing up, like having an airsoft gun that's actually the same weight of a gun. It's not a gimmicky thing. This is a real tool. And I think competitive shooters, once they start getting their hands on these guns, they realize, again, you've got the Picatinny rail, you got the M-LOK system, you can put your same optic, your same offsets. You can make this gun so close to what you use. Change out the stock, put the cheek riser on it, like whatever you run. I'm really excited to see this as well enter that market, because I think it's a fantastic tool for instructors, competitive shooters, newer shooters. So I'm rambling, but any other final thoughts there on that?
Yeah, I mean, we want to do that too, right? I mean, this I can't say enough about the whole product, right? But I mean, these magazines each get dropped. I mean, 300 times on concrete, right? Well, and we did that. That's kind of something that's carrying over from our time, company focus on DoD stuff. Yeah. But when we looked at it, we said we should still do that for the civilian market, because you're going to drop your mags, right? You're going to do speed reloads. You're going to do the things that are just going to come up, and we want to make sure that we've got a quality product to offer. We're on all the social media platforms out there. Give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook. We're on LinkedIn as well. Unitsolutions.com. What's that?
What's the usernames for the socials at?
Great question. I'm kind of going off the cuff here.
I want to make sure people know.
Yeah, I believe all of them are just at Unit Solutions. For Instagram, hold on, I'm trying to get to it.
This is not dead air time, guys.
Yeah,
it's unit.solutions for the username for Instagram. Yeah.
Unit.solutions for Instagram, and Unit Solutions is for Facebook.
Yep. So unitsolutions.com. I will leave this. We don't know what it'll be yet, but there is a surprise. You can use the code 3GunKenzie as usual on their website. Check out a little special something and gift for you guys if you want to check it out. And find me at a major match. So that's something we can talk about real quick, is like, I know you guys are working with some other people, which I'll give you a second to name, but the travel benefit too of me, where I'll be at some AK Motherland. I've got the Gap Grind PRS match. I've got 2 more 3-gun matches. I know I'll be at Fall Brawl. I'll have the system with me. And so if you want to shoot your buddy, come do that. No. But if you want to check it out, especially the blanks, feel the recoil impulse and what that looks like, come find me and get your hands on one of these, because I think that'll be cool. And I don't know if you want to mention some of the other folks you're working with if people want to try this out.
Yeah, so we're working on, we've got a lot of various different training companies we're working with, I'm not just saying this. I could spend a lot of time just naming those, but we've got lots of training organizations we're working with. We're planning on doing lots of stuff with you, right? So these events you're going to be at and whatnot, we want to be there as well. We don't want to just send you out and just say, yeah, we're doing some stuff. That if we're not there, it's not the same thing, right? So we want to do events and support the community as a whole. We've got Blue Bearing, I think, is the biggest company. Kyle Morgan has just been he's been great to us. So he does a lot of stuff with LE, but he's got some training courses and stuff he runs as well. So I want to make sure I guess give him double shout out.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about Kyle. And then just overall, we're new in the commercial, but we're all in.
Yep. And guys, they do listen to feedback. So if you've got questions, you've got feedback, you've got anything, like, they're the most approachable folks out there. They actually want feedback to make the next iteration better or to work with you to make it better, right? These tools are really important. I think we've covered that a million times, but I think that's a value thing to offer too, is like, you guys are here and listening.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really true, thing that's kind of separates us from anybody else, right? I mean, I think all of our customers that we've got would tell you we're just super responsive, right? So we're a company that really believes in, if you reach out to us and you've got a question, you're going to get a text back from me, right? From a VP level guy, or sometimes even the presidents, right? Presidents of the company will reach out, Cody, Jamie, reach out and say, hey, saw this come in, saw the order or whatever, what questions do you have? What can we do for you? When we get feedback, it's one of us answering it, right? I mean, and we get back to you. And, the other thing I'll highlight is just, Zach Lloyd's our VP of marketing. Zach's doing an excellent job of making sure that we're out there and in the space and being, getting all the great social media output that we can do. And then, overall, we want to learn from our customer, right? So, what you said, Kenzie, I think is key. If somebody's got feedback on the system that they think we need, please let us know. We do T&Es as well, right? So if you go on the website,
what's a T&E? What's a T&E?
Test and evaluation. So if you're one of those guys or gals, you're like, I don't know about this thing, I don't want to commit, all right, cool. Well, go on the website, order a test and evaluation kit, right? And you can do that. It's that way you're not fully committing. Great part is if you decide to do that and you get your hands on the rifle, like I know you will, and you're like, I love this, cool, hang on to it. We'll work out the full price for the thing, and we go from there. So yeah, we do all that type of stuff as well, and love customer feedback.
Yep. I'll get you to learn acronyms for the average human. I've said T&E so many times on podcasts lately that I've had to tell people, like, hey, what does that stand for? Because people don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a thing. We do it all the time. Much lower cost if you're kind of one of those people on the fence. And then we do, the other thing that I'll throw out there that we do as well is if you're one of those people that's like, I really like it, but we do payment plan type stuff as well, right? So that's stuff that's out there as well. So just let us. We're here to serve you guys. We really are. And again, we're all in on this. So let us know what you need.
Love it. Jason, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your passion and for working with me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we are too.
Awesome. Well, listeners, stay tuned next week for an all-new episode of the Red Quilt Podcast. Go check out Unit Solutions. If you've got questions, again, we're all ears. So reach out and stay tuned on next week's new episode.
Thanks for listening to the Red Quilt Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.